Have you ever wondered why we need to sleep? Hi everyone, I'm here with me. And sleep is one of the biggest mysteries in biology. Even though we spend about a third of our lives asleep, we still don't know exactly why. But there are some pretty good theories. We do know that almost all living land animals sleep, but obviously we don't know what all those animals are dreaming about when they're asleep. And for most of human history, we didn't know much about the brains of sleeping people either because, well, it's really hard to study brains while people are asleep. But modern technology has allowed us to peer into the brains of sleeping humans and uncover the many reasons why sleep may have evolved. One of the most compelling theories proposes that sleep evolved to keep us safe. You see, being awake makes you way more susceptible to dangerous stuff like, predators. If you're awake, you can see and hear and smell things, including potential threats. So it seems counterintuitive to voluntarily make yourself unable to defend yourself, right? Well, maybe the benefits of sleep outweigh the risks of predation. There are tons of animals that sleep during the day, like nocturnal bullfrogs, who are vulnerable to daytime predators. But they snooze anyway, because the risk of dying from being eaten is way lower than the risk of dying from dehydration. And studies have shown that if there are fewer predators around, animals sleep less. So it looks like the risk of dying while you're awake, whether from a predator or something else, predicts how much an animal sleeps. In fact, research suggests that even humans may have evolved to sleep to avoid danger. In hunter-gatherer societies, men slept less than women, and that seems to be the case today too. Men tend to sleep about 40 to 50 minutes less per night than women do, which researchers think might be because men face greater dangers both from other men and from wild animals, at least until very recently. This idea is also backed up by studies that show that people living in dangerous neighborhoods sleep less than those living in safer ones. And just like the bullfrogs, people who live in more dangerous areas are more likely to be up at night looking out for trouble, which cuts into their sleep time. Okay, so maybe sleep helps us avoid being eaten by saber-toothed tigers. But why do we need to sleep at all? Hibernating animals like ground squirrels can go without food for months, but they need a little energy boost every now and then to stay alive. And since they can't eat while they're hibernating, they get their sustenance from their own body fat. The catch is they have to speed through their metabolism by raising their body temperature to just above freezing, and that takes a lot of energy. So, during hibernation, these animals will wake up every few days to save energy, re-enter the torpor, then repeat the process. Humans can't hibernate, but we do need to take regular breaks from speeding our metabolism to get by. We just don't wake up as part of this process. Instead, we sleep. And while we're at it, our bodies carry out all sorts of maintenance and repair work, clearing out damaged proteins and building new ones. And that brings us back to brain power. Unlike other parts of our body, our brains use glucose for energy even when we're sleeping. They basically never stop consuming glucose. And researchers think that studying the brain while we sleep may reveal why. When scientists studied the brains of mice as they were sleeping, they found two distinct periods of rapid eye movement, REM sleep, during which the mice dreamed, and non-sleep during which their brains looked very similar to those of awake mice. And the mice spent more energy during REM sleep, meaning that sleep may help the brain maintain its normal function. In other words, sleeping could be a form of energy conservation, a way to ensure that vital organs like your brain have enough fuel to keep running smoothly. But wait, if brains run on glucose, why do we need to eat at all? Well, unlike glucose, nutrients like protein and fats can't cross the blood-brain barrier. So eating may help us absorb nutrients that our brains need to produce glucose. And if we don't eat those nutrients, our brains may not get the energy they need to stay sharp. It's possible that over millions of years, natural selection favored animals that regularly ate and slept. Eating provided their brains with necessary nutrients to function properly. And sleeping helped them conserve energy until it was time to hunt or be hunted again. Of course, that raises another. Why do we need to eat at all? And unfortunately, we don't have a great answer for that. But we do know that our bodies need nutrients to build cells and carry out all the chemical reactions that keep us alive. And some nutrients like fats and carbohydrates are much more calorie-rich than others like veggies and fiber. That means that our ancestors probably had to spend quite a bit of time finding catching and digesting food, especially if they were hunting big animals or gathering tough plants. These tasks required a lot of energy, so it makes sense that over time, natural selection would favor animals that could afford to take breaks to refuel. In fact, mammals sleep more than most other animals except for bats, dolphins, and whales. But we do spend a lot of time looking for food and digesting it. Not all mammals do this, though. Like opossums, koalas, and wombats are mostly plant eaters, which doesn't require as much energy as hunting down prey. So, these guys sleep less than, say, wolves, bears, and big cats, who spend lots of time chasing down animals to eat. But we're still missing something. Why do we need to digest food at all? Well, no matter what you eat, whether it's plants or animals, the stuff that makes them up doesn't break down easily. Meat has to be turned into smaller molecules before our bodies can use it. And that means that getting enough to eat is only half the battle. Just as important is digesting that food, which requires a lot of water and energy. But the organisms that provide us with food, like plants and animals, have evolved ways to resist being eaten and digested. Plants have tough cell walls and thorns and an appetizing chemicals. Animals have shells and armor and are super fast or super strong. So breaking them down to get the nutrients inside takes a lot of work. Which may be why animals that spend a lot of time trying to eat need to take time off to digest their meals. Like most mammals, we humans need to eat several times a day to meet our energy needs. And each meal takes hours to digest. No wonder our guts make up about 1/3 of our body length. And after we eat, our gut bacteria release substances that tell our brains that it's time to rest. In other words, after a big meal, we feel sleepy because our bodies are working overtime to break it down. That's why it's a bad idea to run a marathon or lift heavy weights on a full stomach. Our bodies need all that energy to digest our food, not power our muscles. And it's not just the act of eating that takes energy. We also expend a lot of calories keeping our body temperature high. Some animals, like reptiles, are what we call poikilothermic, meaning that their body temperature fluctuates depending on the environment. Being poikilothermic saves energy because you don't have to keep your body temperature up all the time. But it limits where you can live. If you can't regulate your own temperature, you have to be somewhere warm to move around quickly enough to catch your next meal. Or, if you're a predator, you have to live somewhere with enough prey to chase down and catch. But as long as you've got enough to eat, it's easy to overheat or get too cold. So, being able to regulate your temperature gives you a huge advantage, because you can survive in a wide range of environments and become active at different times of the day. Generating your own body heat allows you to be active anytime. Warm-bloodedness gives you flexibility, which could explain why mammals and birds, the only animals that are warm-blooded, sleep less than their cold-blooded counterparts. Mammals and birds must find enough food to fuel their high metabolic rates, but also to generate extra heat to stay warm. So it makes sense that we spend so much time eating and sleeping to activities that conserve energy. Okay, so we know why we need to sleep, but why do we dream? If you want to learn more about that, check out the link below. Thanks for watching this episode of SCI Show, and thank you to one of our patrons for asking this question. Patrons can submit questions to our inbox, and our editors pick out the best ones to answer in episodes like this one. Don't forget to subscribe!